hello. How we
Hello,
doing?
hello. Melissa and Miriam here with Biology of the Soul.
Yes, another Wednesday, another week went by. How does that happen? Right?
Oh my gosh. Right now I feel like the week's just brrr.
And I can't believe the month is almost gone too. It's just That's crazy. I don't know what happened in this year, but it went.
Now I went from like thinking about all the things I was gonna do in the summer, and then I'm running around all summer long doing the things. And then I met a new person, and then my whole life changed. Now I'm in Illinois.
A lot of things
And
change.
then
Yeah.
I feel like trying to catch up to everything that's happening. And what's really cool is, so within my life, so biology of the soul here is all about mind, body, and soul connection, like understanding that we are you know multifaceted, but that every part is connected, and you can't really set, like, they are separate, but you can't really separate them in a way. You got to honor and recognize all the parts that make up who you are. And through the process of doing that for myself, and then also with wanting, this is why we want to do biology of the soul, this is why we talk about what we want to talk about, so that when you do find yourself in situations where there's a lot going on, you know how to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I've been, so in my life right now, I have a lot going on. I travel all the time, and I'm going around to different family. I go stay with them. I go stay with them. So I'm always moving around. I'm hardly, if ever, in the same place, which can really disrupt like routines and structures and habits and things that you can have in place, which can be detrimental in a lot of ways. So traveling, like that always keeps me on my toes and keeps me, I have to maintain that balance of the mind, body, and the soul to like constantly be in motion like that. So I was traveling like pretty much all summer long. And then my now ex-husband, he left in April, and that, kind of changed my world a little bit. And then, dealing with that, and he was, upset, and he's, saying things, and I'm like, like, okay,
Some
like, I
stress
understand,
there.
how
Yeah. A
how
little
you
stress.
feel. And so, and then I'm managing with that. And then, my daughter, providing, help and support for her within her life. And, and then meeting a new person. I'm running a business, the Insurance Exam Queen business, which has been amazing and wildly successful. I'm transitioning from being an employee to an employee. Like
A
I'm now
CEO, right?
working on hiring
Yeah.
people. I'm now
Mhm.
running a YouTube channel. So I'm traveling all the time. My ex-husband leaves, um, supporting my daughter, running a business. And then I met somebody new, and it's like I didn't want to live where I was living anyway. So I'm gonna, go where they are. And like all these changes, and now I'm moving across the country. We got to get things scheduled. And then I'm, also running my business at the same time. And there's all these things going on. And in my life in the past, when I have all these things happening, I stress out. Like, I am so stressed. And I can tell you right now, I am tired because there's always stuff, but I'm not stressed. I'm not, I'm not worried. I'm not
Mhm.
anxious. I'm not like freaking out. I'm like, okay, yep, I got something to do. I have these things. Like, okay, just take the next step and handle it. And another big thing that I'm not doing is I'm not beating myself up. So in the past, it was like, well, you should have done that. You should have done this. You should have done it like this. You should have done it like that. And then like just beating yourself up, or even just beating yourself up for all the things that are coming. You're like, oh, I got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. And oh my God, I have all these things. And it's like, ah. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I can sit here and say, yeah, I have all these things, but I'm just going to take it one step at a time and manage what is coming up in front of me. And just moving from that point forward, giving myself grace and flexibility, like we were talking about. Done is better than perfect. So
Right.
even if it means doing things half-assed to some extent, it's better to do that than to have things done. And then the
Then to
key
not
is
do it
to
at all,
not,
right?
yeah, and then the key is to not judge yourself or harass yourself for the fact that it wasn't necessarily your best. But that's the thing about best is best. You can't always be your best, otherwise it wouldn't be best. So best is not all the time. And I think that within society, that's where a lot of the judgment and the frustration comes in for people, is because we're trying to be our best all the time. And I think we all always doing our best, but sometimes our best means not the best. Like your best sometimes is showing up tired,
Sometimes
but
it's just
so it's
showing up, right? Or
yeah,
doing
that's what
it
I'm saying. Like,
scared or
yeah,
whatever, Yeah.
yeah, sometimes your best is not very much, but that's your best you can do at that moment.
Time. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it's really different this time, really different for me, feeling, having the same side, or you got to do this, you got to do that, moving around, all these things, all these moving parts, all these different people, all the different ways, running a business, customer service, running classes, collecting payments, like all the
Yeah.
things. And in the past, this would have just absolutely eaten me up and tear me down and stress me out and all these things. And I'm just like,
Right.
okay, what's next? I'm just going to handle what's next. And it all
Yeah.
comes from being in connection with the mind, body, and the soul, and understanding that my mind, beating me up with anxious thoughts is just that it's not true. It's not real. Feeling safe within my body. So much of our stress and triggers and stuff comes from a feeling of being unsafe. So I tap into my body often to feel safe. And then my soul knows that we're doing big and great things, and that the daily small to small things are just things that you handle one step at a time, but that they're not the deciding factor of your ultimate life. Like today, I had a client who failed her exam, and she's very upset
Yeah.
and disappointed. And it's like, but you're not going for this, you're not going for the exam to pass it. You're going for this exam to have an insurance career. And you're working on something that's going to be for your lifetime, not just today. So don't hold the standard of, if I don't pass this exam, it's all over. No, if you don't pass the exam, you go back to study again.
It's not
Like
the
you just,
end,
because
forever.
yeah, we treat so many things. This is like I want to be able to say this. I'm developing this idea, is like how we treat every moment as like a pass or fail, and judge ourselves so harshly if we believe that we failed. But instead of treating moments as pass or fail, just it's a part of life. It's a step of life, and it's like one brick that you're building towards whatever it is that you're building. It's not the deciding factor. And
Right.
we treat too many steps along the way as like end of the roads, and they're
Mhm.
not end of the roads.
Right.
They're just a mark along the path. And as long as we keep moving forward, as long as we're still continuing on,
Mhm.
we can get and achieve what it is that we want.
Yeah.
I mean, when I really think about it, I was driving, I didn't have a lot of money in the bank. I was making just enough to pay my bills. I couldn't be stressed out anymore with an employer, which is why I was like, I will do whatever it takes to get away from, the employer and the um school system, because I was a teacher at that time. I was so stressed out, shingles down my back, and I'm barely 30 and I've got shingles in the middle of my back, so stressed out, skin flaking off in all directions, plaque psoriasis just pops up on my body in random places. The stress was cortisol levels through the roof, and I quit, and I was substitute teaching, driving Lyft and Uber. Never in that moment 5 years ago would I have been, I would have a wildly successful insurance exam queen business. Like I didn't even, the teaching the insurance exam wasn't even a thought in my mind at that time. And it was during that time that I found that, whole side of things, when I was in a place where I was making less money than I ever had before, because I was just doing Lyft and Uber. I was substitute teaching. I didn't have a consistent paycheck. I didn't have a consistent job. It was just whatever I was taking at the time, flying on the seat of my pants one day at a time. And it was in that moment when I discovered and found, the insurance exam as a path for me. And I did get with an employer again, but I was making a lot more money. I got all the experience that I needed to be able to do this. And now I'm doing it on my own. And it's that same energy, that same vibe of, I don't want to be with an employer that I had when I was doing Lyft and Uber. And now in this way, when I now being in this place again, but actually making so much more money than Lyft and Uber through my business and then changing people's lives. Like this woman called me today after passing her exam, and the whole first 5 minutes, she's just like screaming, "Oh," and it was just like, oh my gosh, like it was just so fun. And then she, she made a video. She was so excited. She's in her car, like we're doing that. Like this is what my business is doing, is helping these people change their whole life and their careers and their financial futures. And never would I have thought 5 years ago, sitting in my Lyft and Uber, that I would be here today. And I think if I it's when we stop and look back. Like sometimes we think, I'm not far enough. I've been working so hard. I'm not far enough. I should be further. I should have this. But just stop and look back at how far you've come. We changed the bar so drastic. Like my bar has changed. My standard of like how much money I make and how I want my life and things like that is always raising, that I forget that there was a point I was like this is now my norm. But there was once a point that this was my norm, and we don't recognize the jump here. We just keep trying to go up and up and up. But when you honor and recognize and feel gratitude for where you've come from before, which again is the whole body, mind, body, soul connection. It's not just facts and figures on a page of how much money I'm making, but you got to connect your spirit and your body with that. That's what allows us to go at even higher levels and skyrocket. But when you focus on, oh, I need to move further, I need to be up higher, that's the disconnection. That's your mind only. You need your mind, body, and your soul to really make those far leaps into, what the next standard of your living. And when I say standard of living, I don't mean like, like poor, middle, whatever. I'm just saying like what you accept as your daily life. And now my standard of living is a life that is full of peace, a life that is full of joy, a life where I get to determine my time and my attention. That is my new standard of living. Whereas my standard of living before was, I got to go into an office every day from 9 to 5, work for someone else, barely get any pay. And then maybe I'll have a couple hours in the evening to myself, and I'll end up sleeping all weekend instead of enjoying my time because I got to go back to this 9 to 5. That was my standard of living before.
Right.
And now my standard of living is I control my time. I get to decide when I wake up. I get to decide how much money I make. Like that is so cool. And to be able to look back and say, well, that's like really honor like where I was before. I was driving Lyft and Uber. I was just making just enough to survive. And now I'm, thriving. And it really does come down to that mind, body, and soul connection, which is what we make it so important here.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I've gone off on a minute. Gone off for a minute.
I love how you share in your story, because there's so much power in recognizing these things and beginning to unravel these patterns that we've had in our lives. Not everyone's story is exactly like yours, but I think many of us connect to similar type things, patterns, mindsets. Dealing with stress and anxiety is a really big one. I think almost everyone can probably relate to, and learning how to recognize and manage those things better in our everyday life. Whether we are going through a transformative process, kind of like how you have, and actually shifting and changing our life in pretty big ways, or maybe it's on a more smaller scale on a daily basis, just kind of managing and learning to deal with our stress and anxiety in our regular routines, those kinds of things. And my story is a little bit different as well. So I'll share a little on that in a minute. But I did want to also say hello. If you're new and you're popping in and you're seeing us, we would love to connect with you. Say hi, tell us where you're tuning in from. And like she said, our biology of the soul that we're talking about here, I've had a couple people be like, what does that mean? What is this? Like Melissa said, this is about bringing together holistic health, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, those elements that we need to harmonize to function at our best. And like Melissa said, our best isn't always perfect, right? We have this, I think, concept in our mind that we want our best to be perfect and like no problems and everything's always good and we do everything like right or whatever. I'm just going to say right now that really doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some days where we can do really amazing, and that's great. There are going to be days where we're a little more tired or there's some other challenges going on and things. So can't always expect to be able to hit that bar that maybe we want to. It's okay to have goals and aspirations for that. That's fine. But we also have to have that compassion and grace on ourselves and um, actually celebrate that we're showing up that day, no matter what state we might be in, right? And I love how you share about that, Melissa, and in your story, how you've learned to do that for yourself, because that's really powerful and really, really important. So for those of you guys joining in today, I wanted to just give a quick kind of overview of some of the things that we're going to be sharing about. We're going to share some of our stories and examples and things that have really worked for us, but we are going to touch on our 4 R's, which if you saw our Fuel Your Future masterclass, we really dug a little bit deeper into these. So today we're just touching on them a little bit. We have recognizing and releasing old patterns and things like that, and then refreshing, restoring, and refocusing. So we'll touch a little bit on that. But if you guys want our full in-depth, we do have a replay available for the masterclass, and that does include our PDF guide as well. So if you want to grab that, you let us know here, say replay or what have you, but we can get you that. Also, for those of you who want to jump on over to our little group for Biology of the Soul, we can send you just the PDF guide as a thank you for joining in there, and then that you'll be in the loop and you'll be able to see the new stuff we have going on. You'll get notified so you can know what's happening, what's going on.
Yeah.
So, long story short, there with Biology of the Soul, our goal, our vision, our purpose, why are we doing this? The whole goal is to kind of come alongside of you and provide you practical tools and strategies you can begin to implement in your life. For some people, it's going to be more the mental, the mindset shifts and things like that, shifting those mental patterns and stuff. For some, it might be more physical patterns and habits and things like that that need to start shifting and changing in your life. And for some, it might be more emotional and spiritual. And then for many of us, it's a little bit of all of that. And that's why we are doing this, because there's many great tools and resources and books out there which are amazing, but most of those focus on one area at a time, which is not bad. But what I've seen, and for those of you who don't know me, hi, I have worked in healthcare about 12 years. So I have a lot of experience with that. But the past 7 years, I started getting different certifications and more experience in holistic health, because for so many years, I saw many, many patients and clients who would be doing the right physical health things, right? Doing the right things, but because there was stress or emotional elements, mental patterns, other factors going on, their recovery and their ability to heal and be healthy was actually held back and restricted, limited, because we weren't addressing all of those other pieces. So that's one of the reasons that I started my private practice that I have now, my holistic practice, so that I can provide a more holistic, customized plan for my clients to come alongside, specifically targeted strategies for what they have going on mentally, emotionally, and physically, that will help propel them towards well-being, health, vitality, and that these little shifts and strategies and tools that can begin to be integrated every single day will empower you in moving forward in a healthier way long term and maintaining those healthy habits, not just doing something where you like one time or for a month or for a couple months you're doing these healthy things and then that's it, it's done, and then you just go right back into the old things, right? How many of you have done that? Been there. So that's kind of what this is about. This is why we are here. This is our passion and our vision behind what we're doing here. And for those of you kind of popping in, we do stream these live on Facebook. But we are also building a YouTube channel, so it's easier to have everything kind of all in one place rather than having to scroll through Facebook and find videos and things. So again, if you would like info on that, you just let us know here. We can send you that. That's pretty easy and straightforward. But my story is a little different from Melissa's in that I always kind of grew up with the mentality of what's the word for it? The people call it like sort of a lack mentality, kind of, right? A scarcity mindset. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, scarcity mindset.
And in that, how I developed behaviors and patterns and habits was that everything had to be done with a sense of security and safety in mind, right? Which isn't always bad, okay? But the thing is, I was actually limiting myself based on what I felt like I could do that was going to be safe and secure, so to speak, right? So, for example, I love working in the medical field. There's so many great things about it, right? And I got my medical degree. I have a degree in healthcare and everything, and all of the things, which, by the way, as someone with anxiety and dyslexia and ADD, that was not easy. So, if you need tips on surviving and going through academics, then I'm your girl with ADD and dyslexia and all the things. So, anyways, then moving into, healthcare, that's great. But what I didn't learn was how to be confident in my abilities, my gifts. What I didn't necessarily learn early on was that I have the capacity to do more than I can actually think. And for me, it was a lot of mental shifting that I had to learn and grow in. And it's so interesting how everyone's journey is very different. So I'm not going to go into, the whole story is long, but to kind of shorten it a little bit, I finally got to a point where I realized that the way I was thinking about things, the way I was allowing my mental patterns to continue on with fear and anxiety and worry and those kinds of things, that was holding me back from really pursuing my passions in serving people to the greatest capacity with all of my gifts and abilities. I've had a few people here and there and be like, well, why are you doing your own, business and everything? That seems like a lot of work and time and effort and like maybe more stressful than just go get a healthcare job. Now with the experience that I have, I could easily go get a healthcare job that's 6 figures a year. That would be quote unquote easy. But you know what? I finally, and if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, I should definitely do that. That would for sure be easier than running my own business and being a CEO and a manager and a marketer and all of the things, right? But you know what? My journey led me to realize that my capacity is actually greater than what I thought. That and so I encourage you, if you're listening, your capacity is greater than what you might think. You're capable of a lot more than you might think. Well, we have to shift the way that we're viewing things, the way that we view ourselves, how we think about ourselves, how we view and move through circumstances and situations differently than maybe we used to. So that's why we talked about these 4 R's: the releasing, the refreshing, the restoring, the refocusing, because that helps us move through these things in a different way. So I realized that I am not passionate about the what would you call it, the traditional medical model, as you would call it,
Yeah.
and certain things in that, because it kind of restricts my ability to address, like, what if my patient isn't sleeping, what if their nutrition is really terrible and they need support with the right nutrition for their body and their brain and their body to heal and all those things, and balancing blood sugar, that type of thing, right? What if they have something traumatic or emotional going on or stress, and they're having a difficult time regulating their central nervous system to just function on a daily basis? And of course, when our body is in that state, it doesn't heal well. It doesn't function well. We have difficulty with our brain, our focus, all, and sleep. It dominoes into hormones and all of these things, right? So I realized that my passion to come alongside my clients and my patients in this holistic way is so much bigger than having the safety and security of a traditional, healthcare role, if you would, so to speak, So that's kind of a little bit about me and where I'm at in my story, and how bringing together these pieces of holistic well-being are so quintessential for not only myself, but also the people that I work with, and Melissa as well in her story. That has been so, so important for her. And that's why we came together to do this. And that's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't treat ourselves as a whole person. We segregate and separate, and and it is, like even going to a doctor, there's a doctor for your woman things, there's a doctor for your the family general, and then you got a skin doctor, like we and it's necessary, it's important, that we have those things so that you can have that, not that expertise on that one thing, but it causes us also to just be so separate with ourselves. Like when we do say, oh, I have a skin issue, well, it's actually probably stress that's popping up as a skin issue.
Either stress or gut health. One of those two.
So like for me, I mean, that's the case for me. When I got skin stuff, I'm stressed out. So like, and we don't, we need to look at ourselves more as a whole person. And like you said, your capacity is so much bigger than what you thought. And that's because you were only operating with your mind, what you thought you could do. But what about what you feel you could do? We don't separate a lot. We don't realize that there is a distinction though. So in some levels, like we got to stop separating. But at the same time, we need to understand that there is a separation between our mind and emotions. And that's what we're trying to do, is bridge the gap between that and reconnecting our mind and emotions. But our minds will convince us of all kinds of things, where our feelings are like ready to be bigger. And, like so many of us, I was talking with, my boyfriend, and people are intimidated by him a lot. And they'll use him as like for instance, he's going to go hunting with his friend's kid, and the kid doesn't, he doesn't always have like motivation to do things, but they're like, well, you get to go hunting with him. And he's like, perks up. He's like, I want to go hunting with him. But then, other people use him as a threat. Like, hey, if you don't do this, uncle's coming over. And you're like, oh, they shape up. But we talk about the intimidation, and it's like, he's not intimidating. He's just very confident in who he is and how he operates and how he shows up in the world. And when a person lacks that within themselves, seeing it in someone else feels scary and intimidating. But that's your mind saying, I can't be that confident. But your feelings are actually saying, like, we should have that. Let's have that. And it makes it scary, because like excitement and fear are like on the same spectrum, and when you're feeling the fear, that means that there's the possibility to feel that much excitement. So as big fear as you feel, you can feel that much, excitement. So the fear is seeing another person who is so strong, so confident in who they are, just owns the place wherever it is that they walk into. And it feels intimidating, but not because there's something wrong with this person, but because you yourself want to be able to tap into that power, that capacity that you have. And your mind is telling you that you can't. Like so many women will say to me, I wish I could do my hair like that. Well, then do it. Like what? There's nothing stopping you but the thought in your head that you can't. Here's the razor. Like, like I don't have the confidence to pull it off. Do you know how you get the confidence to pull it off? You do it.
You do it. Yeah.
You do it. And as soon as you do it, you now have the confidence to pull it off. Like like just, that you got to tap into the feeling beyond the mental. The feeling beyond the mental, that's where your capacity is. We have so much power in our feelings. Our feelings is what draws to us what it is that we want. So if we keep our mentals beating down our feelings, like our mentals is saying, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, this isn't great, you need to be more perfect, you're all these things. It's beating down our feelings instead of allowing our feelings to expand and be able to say, you know what, I can feel better about myself if I can delete these mental, programs. So that comes to the releasing and the recognizing that you have these thoughts in your head that are beating down your emotions to stay scared. Where if you were to delete these mentals and say, well, you know what, maybe I can feel better about my day. Maybe my quality of work is great. And that's like another thing with my boyfriend is I will say to him all the time, like, you are so amazing. Like the way you just did that right now, the way you handled that, the way you took care of this, like, whoa. And he's like, I don't understand. That's just normal life. And it's like what we do that is normal to us, that is common to us, to other people are like superpowers. Because like we all have our own thing. Like whatever your genius is, like you everybody has this genius power, this thing that it's like, whoa, like just you have it because it is you. But it's like just you have it, like you have this genius, you have this talent, you have this skill, you have this power, you have this aura, you have this energy about you, and no one else has it. To you, it feels so common because it is your norm. To what is normal to you is incredible to someone else. And we can't always see it because it's so normal to us. How would something that is so normal, so basic about me be incredible to someone else? Because that other person doesn't have it. They don't have what you've got. They don't have that feeling. They don't have that talent. They don't have that skill. So for you to have it to them is like, mind blowing.
Like,
And it's
what
like,
is this? How do we do? Yeah. Yeah. I love that you talked about kind of dealing with fear and how fear is almost a two-sided coin.
mhm,
And the interesting thing is, there's lots of dynamics, but with fear, I think it really relates to that first R in there, the release, right? Is fear is an indicator that there's something there, right? The reason that we often have like almost a guttural reaction with some when something triggers a sense of fear, anxiety, or worry, or whatever it might be, is because it's just an indicator saying like there's something there that we're concerned about. There's a concern there. But if you learn to, like, it's okay to feel the fear, but if you learn to sort of release it, and there are some tools and strategies that we kind of dig into in our masterclass and stuff like that, on how to do that. And if you look at some of our other videos, we've talked about it too. Then on the other side or underneath of the fear, however you want to kind of look at it, it's either the other side of the coin, or maybe you're releasing that and you're looking a little bit deeper underneath. There's a reason that the indicator is there. And once you tap into that and you dig into that reason why that is coming up, you can actually often find something that's going to give you more passion, more power, more drive. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, that is where this is coming from. That's the reason that I need to push forward in this particular, area. And I'll give an example for a recent example for me. I was in a conversation with someone, and they were talking about how excited they were about something, da 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 da. And I was like, why is what they're saying bothering me so much? And it
that
was
is
like,
always a great question, by the way.
yes.
That
So
is that
yeah.
awareness, instead of saying they're awful, you say, "Why do I feel this way?"
Why is this? So this is a great tool. So if you're someone that is looking for strategies and tools, put this down somewhere, write this down for yourself, or put a reminder. Why is this coming up for me in this conversation? Because there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with them. Like, it was perfectly innocent, but I was realizing it was connecting to a fear for me, and a scarcity mentality, and a fear for me that there wouldn't be enough, or whatever it was. There was like this thing. So I had to deal with that. And once I dug into that and I dealt with it, I unlocked like another level of passion and excitement and drive for what I needed to do to move forward in a particular area of my business and my work that I do. But if I would have just reacted to the fear, or gone into a fight or flight mode and just froze, or just whatever, like there's different responses that we have when we feel that fear, anxiety, worry, or whatever, then I never would have dug deeper and tapped into that next level of whatever you want to call it, passion, power, drive, that I needed to move forward. And I really love this. There's a tool that you can use, and we talked a lot about this and really dug into this more in our masterclass. But when you release, think about, how can I release the tension in this moment and set my intention for how I want to move forward. And you can do that even in the moment of having a lot of anxiety, fear, worry, or whatever. We just have to get into the practice of recognizing that this is coming up and saying, nope, why is this coming up? Okay, take note of that. And when you have time, journal about it or whatever you need to do, right? But in the moment, you can say, I'm going to release this tension. I'm going to set my intention to show up with fill in the blank. Are you going to show up with joy? Are you going to show up with confidence? Are you going to show up with love? Are you going to show up with compassion? How are you wanting to show up? Who do you want to be in that moment, right? Because we don't want to be the reactive, fearful, worry person. Nobody really wants to be that. That's sort of like an automatic mode sometimes, right? How can you release that tension and choose to set your intention to show up? That's
Yeah.
really, really important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have another an example of that. So in my course of in the course of my life of wanting to be a better person, feeling good each day, I have gone to multiple different modalities of therapy. And I have found that when we experience pain in the body, or when we have a traumatic event, it leaves a residual of pain in the body that becomes a protective armor so that in the future, when when that circumstance or situation presents itself again, we can have like a layer of protection over it. But at the same time, it also causes us to feel the pain over and over and over and over again when we're using it as a shield instead of understanding where it's coming from. So for example, my boyfriend and I were very playful. In the living room, everywhere, we're all very like he'll like, pinch my butt, or like we'll tick each other, like all these things. We're playful all the time, everywhere. But we haven't been playful in the kitchen until like recent. He was cooking. So he was cooking and he was very like, focused on his task because he has yet to up until this moment, we're fresh. So up until this moment, he had helped me in the kitchen before, but this is the time where he was in charge and he was running the kitchen and he was making the decisions about what to cook and what was going on. And he's very, masculine in this mode. He's like, I'm focused. I've got a result I have to do. I'm doing these things. And then I came in there and he started, he got playful with me. But when I entered in the kitchen, but this was not awares to me until after. So I enter the kitchen and I'm back in my childhood because my dad operated the kitchen. He was the cook of the family and he's had that same like I'm focused on making dinner. Now, when I grew up in my household where my dad ran the kitchen, he also had his own mental illnesses and he has, trauma and triggers and things like that. So he would scream and yell at us. Like we could be like, no one's helping me in the kitchen. We'd come in the kitchen, get the fuck out of my kitchen. Like there was never any pleasing him. And it was possible that he may, slap you upside the head or, just make aggressive movements towards you because you're in his space and you're in his way. But then he's asking for your help. So that energy came into my body when I was in the kitchen with him. And so my boyfriend is making dinner. He's doing these things. He's got that focused task. I get that same, like the last time I felt this was, in my child, didn't aware was happening. I'm in, kind of in my mind, and this is happening in my soul and my body. Then my boyfriend makes, a move towards me, to be playful and stuff like that. He had grabbed a little blop of potatoes and he's putting them to me taste and he blops them on my nose. And I like flinch back. Like, and then I'm almost crying about this action. And I'm like, and I knew, right? I knew that the feeling that popped up. So in that moment where I'm unawares that my body has kind of put itself back in my childhood status because a man is operating the kitchen. And I didn't understand that yet, but I knew that I was triggered. So I've done enough therapy to understand that when a big emotion feeling pops up in a normal situation, that I am somehow triggered into the past pain of my body. So when I was a child growing up in that kitchen, every time my dad screamed at me, yelled at me, hit me upside the head, it put a pain in my body that has saved and stored and collected itself there. because as a child, you don't know how to process your feelings and emotions. So it just stays, in your energy field, in your emotion, in your soul, and it just, hangs out. So what was happening was my boyfriend was triggering that pain in my body where a man was aggressive to me in the kitchen, made aggressive movements, hit me upside the head, screamed and yelled at me. And my boyfriend being playful with me triggered that. Now it's not he did nothing wrong, nothing wrong. He's being playful. He's doing all the things I would love for, my partner to do. And yet I'm here crying. And then there were two other instances where, we being playful or something that he said made me want to cry. Now I didn't bring it up to him yet because I knew that this was my thing, not his thing. But had I not been aware of triggers and traumas, I might have yelled at him. Why would you put that potato on my nose? What are you doing? That's awful. Like, why are you being aggressive towards me? I could have perceived it as that because of my pain. My mind would have told me that because my mind is not necessarily connected to my feelings. It's only through therapy and working on it and understanding that the feeling that I'm feeling now is not because of the current situation. The current situation triggered that feeling, but that feeling, that pain, that scared of being a man in a kitchen is actually coming from my childhood. So when I got triggered and I was almost brought to tears, I honored that I was feeling some type of way, and I allowed myself to tap into where is that coming from. So I literally asked God, asked source, asked universe. I said, where is this pain coming from? Because I was yet unawares that I was back in the kitchen with my dad, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And then that's when it came to me. I felt this feeling like, well, Melissa, as a child, as a young little girl, when you were in the kitchen with your father, he would make aggressive movements towards you. He would scream at you. He'd be mad at you. He would make motions out, hit you upside the head. And right now you were in the kitchen with the man doing the same kind of thing where he's owning the kitchen and making things. But in this instance, he's actually a healthy, happy male, loving and supporting you and not screaming at you, not yelling at you, not hitting you. But because I had that trigger and pain in my body, it got activated. So in this moment, this is where that recognition and the releasing comes in. I recognized that the pain and the trauma and the trigger was coming from a former situation. And that's where I got to hold little Melissa. I said, oh my gosh, little Melissa had to be in the kitchen with this angry, aggressive man who might hit her. And she is terrified of that. And so she, and I got to hug her and love her and honor her. And then now in the present day, I got to be in the kitchen with a masculine male who's focused on his thing and, being playful and just like healing those wounds. I was able to kiss all the painful wounds that I had from the past, now being in a healthy space with a man in the kitchen. And it was just, it was just amazing. That's that restore. Like I'm restoring myself to remove that pain and to feel good in a kitchen with a man and not feel terrified to be in a kitchen with a man. And it was just so great. So that was one of the examples, like that can trigger the fight or flight. If I am unaware that the pain I am feeling, that the cause of me wanting to cry is actually from the past, and I think it's him currently in the future, that's where a lot of fights and relationship problems come in, and where we blame each other for our triggers and our traumas instead of realizing where they actually came from, which is usually something in the past and usually from your childhood. And when we can honor and heal that, that's the letting go of it. So I let go of the pain that being in a kitchen with a man is scary, because in the past, being in a man with the kitchen was scary, but that's not my reality anymore. That pain is old. And I can love it. I can hug it. I can cherish it. I can say, thank you. Like you were trying to protect me because this did happen in the past and it could happen in the future. And you're wanting to prepare me for that. But I'm in a much better place now. I am, with a healthy person. I'm no longer in my childhood. I'm no longer around that man. I'm an adult. I take care of myself. I don't put myself in situations where people can abuse me, because in a child, you have no choice. If you're in a household with abusive parents, you're going to be abused, period. As a child, you don't really get a choice. As an adult now, I have the choice. I have the power. I can remove myself from situations. So you come back, instead of being a scared, hurt little child, blaming everybody for your problems. You say, I'm an adult now. I can move. If I'm in an abusive situation, I can move. I don't need to be living under that pain and that burden anymore. So anyway, I'm going on and on, but I got another meeting. So I don't know if you
Okay.
had any thoughts with that.
Yeah, we'll let you guys go, but I think that was a perfect example. We learn to release the things that are the tension, the fear, the things that are not serving us. We learn to embrace and choose and set our intention of how we want to be, right? And we can learn to rewrite those patterns that are from traumatic or difficult things, the reasons why, the underlying things that are causing those fears to come up. We can refresh, we can restore, we can refocus, and that's what we really focused on with those 4 R's. So, and you can do that with small things and with bigger things. And so just depending on kind of where you're at, whenever you do this, see this, say hi, and then tell us, what was your favorite thing that you loved from this discussion. We would love to hear from you on that. And like I said, if you
Absolutely.
want to pop into our group, we'll send you the PDF guide with the 4 R's, and then you can stay in the loop. So yeah.
Yay! Awesome. And
All
we will see you
right.
next Wednesday.